This was the last single speaker session for this conference. Now we are going straight into a panel debate. So I want, is the session in the other room finished? Yes. Yes, okay, then we are set to start. Inge, grab a chair. Paul, grab a chair. Zachary, grab a chair. And Gail, I could grab a chair for you. Okay. Since all the participants are mostly in English, we'll take this in English, but you have shown that you are quite good in understanding the message still. I haven't received any question from the audience, but I guess there are several questions popping up, so we start to help you on the way. And Inge, I will challenge you at first. What would you say would be the biggest challenge in organization in order to start strategy, planning, and execution?
It depends on the organization, actually, who you are, what kind of culture you have, what kind of competition you have, etc. So there is no clear answer to this. I think for us, it's about kind of, we have an ambitious goal as corporator. We have set a 2020 target of being a $1 billion company of valuation. And we are going to do this without raising money, you know. So it's kind of, you try to do so much with so little, and that's kind of a challenge. So for us, it's kind of, how can you quickly turn around this kind of company and kind of go, and really have the speed and the pace? That's kind of our biggest challenge, I think.
Paul?
I don't know. Well, right away I'm going to say you're wrong, Inge.
Okay.
This is a debate. Jan Erling said we're debating now. I think Gail gave us the answer of what the biggest problem in strategy and execution is. It's the people side. There's no doubt in my mind that's the case. One of my hobbies, outside of what we all do here, is I'm fascinated by an era in the United States history called Prohibition. Do you know what that is? It's when they stopped selling alcohol in the United States. From 1920, I think, to 1933, if I'm getting my dates correct, something like that. They stopped selling alcohol, and I'm fascinated with that period. So I've read a whole bunch of books on that. I just love it. And one book I read, it was about a guy who was a rum runner. So these were the guys that would bring rum in from alcohol from England and then sell it to the United States. And he documented his process. It's a fantastic book. It's all about the illegal trade of rum running. And he said the number one problem with rum running was the human element. He said he could figure out exactly how much to bring in, how much to sell, where to drop it off. Every time there were problems, it was a human element. So, forgive me for that long setup, but it's the same with what we do with strategy and execution. It's always about, Gail said, the WIFM, what's in it for me? Why should I do this? Do I have executive support for this? So, and I think that's the biggest problem. Developing objectives and measures and everything else, that can be tricky, but it certainly be overcome. But I think you have to start with the human element. That would be my opinion. Are you okay?
Yeah, I don't disagree with the human element. That's kind of the major part of this, kind of hiring the right people. You cannot afford to hire wrong people, you have to have good processes, you have to kind of be very analytical of what you're selling, where, etc. So it's kind of, be able to walk the path towards 2020 for us now, and not kind of waste any kind of time. Of course, we could raise money. But that's a strategic question. Should we do that? But we have kind of set a very ambitious strategy of being a self-funded unicorn, and that's kind of, people is everything, in this. Yeah.
Zachary, you drew us through the case with Google. Mm-hmm. Did I say it right?
Yeah, you said it right.
I agree. Yesterday, and was there something that surprised you or was unexpected during the process with OKR and strategy planning connected?
At Google?
Yeah.
Well, I think for us, and I think I talked about this a little bit yesterday, we work on so much and we have so many product areas. Trying to get a common theme sometimes, a common strategy, can sometimes be difficult. But it's still, I think, important as a company, as an organization. So We do have high-level strategic goals per year, artificial intelligence or machine learning or the next billion users, that we are encouraged all of our product areas to really think about and then come up with those the execution plan for our different areas. So I think the larger the organization, sometimes when you're working on so many different things, maybe it's a little bit more challenging to come up with those strategic goals, but it's very doable. It's just you have to really think, I think, concisely and be laser focused about what you want your people working on, because as they say, if you have too many priorities, you have no priorities, or if everything's important, nothing's important. So really, and I think that's driven by leadership, just really thinking, what do we want to focus? What do we want to be best in class at, maybe during this quarter, this year, and then maybe you switch slightly to the next year. So I think for Google, that's maybe something to think about.
You have just, Gail, you have just been taking us through some psychological elements towards the technology regarding implementing strategy, planning, etc. Could you name 3 success factors that's important for management to achieve when starting the process regarding psychology? How to get the whole team moving the same direction?
That's an interesting question. 3? I have to be 3. So, to get the team moving in the same direction. What I've found is when the team first comes together to talk about strategy, sometimes it feels like they've never spoken before. They are so in their silos that it's a learning experience for the first day. I always allocate the first 4 hours for what I call corporate therapy, because there's angst and we have a lot of emotions to get out of the way, a lot of complaints we need to get on the table, and then you spend the next day and a half or 2 going, oh, we have a marketing department? So what do you do? So allowing the time for this to unfold and time for the communication to happen. I've had clients tell me that these sessions where you're actually building the strategy and having this communication is the most meaningful time that they've spent as executives in their whole history with the company. That they've just never had conversations like this. So I think time is important. I think the leader, like I said in my presentation, I've got a Fortune 100 client, and their CEO is actually here in the Netherlands, or not here, but next door. And I made him fly to the U.S., to Dallas, Texas, to sit down with me. This is a multi-billion-dollar company, and my project was maybe $150,000 worth of work, and sit down so I could talk to him about, are you really on board? Do you really want to use the balanced scorecard? Do you really want a strategy? Do you really want to transform? Or are you going to lead? So leadership and communication, I think, I'm just going to stop with those 2, but those are the 2 I think are most important.
And I'll add to that, because I think you said it, Gail, it was so important. Answer the why. There's a psychological factor that I think we should all start with when we're doing any kind of changes. Well, why should we do this? There's just so much. And it's I'm glad you stayed around to the end now, because I'm going to give you the one secret to success in all of this. This is the answer. I'm going to give the answer right now. This is the answer. You know how you can do everything we've talked about for the last day and a half, or last 2 days? Be successful to start with. Right? So that's is Google great because they do all these cool things? Or do they do all these cool things because they're great? It's so interesting. Like Gail and I have been throwing a lot of research at you the last couple of days. But research indicates that, and what we've been talking about is setting audacious goals and doing really cool things. You're much more likely to achieve them if you're already successful and you have the resources to do so. So my advice to you is, if you're inspired by what we've talked about, and I hope you are, I've been inspired by everything I heard today, you have to critically examine where you are as an organization. If you're already a Google, then you can go for moonshots. They can do that every single day because they have the aptitude, they have the resources to do it. But if you're struggling right now, or you're just kind of, you want to go to a new direction, be cautious about the sort of goals you set. In my little session in there, I talked about the fact that if your goals are unattainable, you're actually going to decrease motivation. So think about where you are right now before you do anything we've talked about the last couple of days. So there's the answer. Yeah.
Zachary, in Google, did you felt there was something you could done differently when you saw the result of the process, or it's still an ongoing process, but you are on your way?
That's a good question, because you can always do better, and I think that's part of the process, is continually looking at how you can improve the process. But people is always the challenge, right? And I think the panel has said as much. So I should have worked with our team to have more of a therapy session at the beginning, which really airs out our, basically you're explaining what your team does, what does your team do, why are we doing this, why do you think this is important? We finally came to those understandings, and then that helped inform our OKR process and the objectives and strategy that we ended up taking. But getting there probably took longer than it needed to. So I think it's important, because of the people element, realize where you are as an organization. Either maybe you're struggling or maybe you're being successful, but then just have a very open mind and be very honest about, okay, why are we trying to do any change here? And then be very open with what you're trying to achieve so that you can then effect change. That open and honest conversation is critical. Sometimes it steps on toes, but that's okay, because you're trying to do what's right for the team, the organization, the company. And if you keep that in mind, because you're not really out there to hurt someone's feelings or something like that. You're trying to do what's right for the company. And so I think in my particular case, just having those open, frank discussions very early on so they can get right to the point of setting very good objectives and strategy probably would have been something, the next team, because there will be a next team or next organization I work with, how am I going to be more effective next time I come and help shape the strategic direction of the team. So that's what I would think.
Inge, how could the corporator help organization to become more mature, more ready for the concrete planning?
Yeah, I think tying up with good partners, because we have a strategy that we are a software company, so we are not a management consulting company that do deal with all these kind of change management and all that stuff. Of course we can bring it out, some of our knowledge and so on, but we are not into that business. So that's a strategy that we have taken, not go into the consulting business, but stay loyal to the software business. So tying up, and I think also arranging conferences like this can kind of bring it up here and there and kind of share knowledge among our customers. That's probably the best way we can do this. Yeah.
A part of our customers in Norway are from the public sector, and in the local municipalities there are something called culture, and culture also get money from above to have some activities, theater, museums, cinemas, etc., shows, whatever. How, and they often need to have a wide area of offers. How can we measure culture? Inge?
Well, I'll take a crack at it and then you hit it. Okay, so there's a whole section on my bookshelf about how to measure stuff, right? So my favorite resource, her name is Stacey Barr. She's down in Australia. Yeah. Oh, you mentioned her. Okay, so you've already given a pitch for Stacey. But Stacey's a brilliant statistician, but to me, she unpacked it so easily. She said, Gail, you must do it. What she's saying is, if you can articulate, what do you mean? So my first question, if you were my client saying, how do I measure culture? I would be like, well, tell me what you mean. What are you trying to accomplish? In words, can you explain the outcome you're trying to achieve?
If I should deep dive, I said, should they be measured by the number of visitors, or should they be measured by the number of variety?
Yes, I don't jump straight to the measure. What are you trying to accomplish? Do you want more visitors? Do you want a more variety of visitors? Do you want both? Do you want something else? What are you trying to accomplish? And then we can talk about how to measure, if it's possible to measure it was statistically significant and all that junk. So, I'm sorry.
The point is, we often talk about money and budget for the next year, and you have to make some arguments for how you can get that amount of money based on your planned activities. So there's something called freedom of act, by having a small theater group showing something for a small group of people. Is that valuable enough, or should you have something that collects 10,000 of people? Is that?
Yeah, I've seen kind of attempts here. I think Fredrikstad Kommune was, or Sarpsborg or something like that, or Askim I think it was. They invited people to come in and kind of say, what should our strategy be? How should we actually start allocating money into kind of our public service? But the people that come there are the special people, you know, really interested in politics, that always kind of directs the money into opera houses or whatever. And I'm teasing a bit now, but actually it's not the representative part of the population that goes to these kind of public political meetings and kind of say this is what we should do. So I think it's difficult to kind of people that care, they can go and they can in this kind of setting. They were the people that were actually was the voice of the customer or voice of the inhabitants. So it's kind of is that a good way? I doubt. Yeah, then I have to go to these political meetings and start shout up.
No, you just nailed it. It's the outcome we're talking about is through the eyes of the customer. How do they perceive success? How do they perceive culture to be? So we would have a lot of dialogue first. We don't jump straight to measures around understanding outcome through whose eyes, what does it look like, you know, and then we can get down to how do you measure that. Yeah.
If I may, Erling, too, I want to take this topic and broaden it a bit, because I want to share a story that I think you'll like, Inge. You may have heard me share this before, I don't know, but one of the problems that I see as a consultant, I know Gail would agree with me on this, is we deal with clients that sometimes say, you can't measure what we do. You hear that? Yeah, it's
no.
Yeah, I never heard that. Yeah, you can't measure what we do, but you can measure anything if you're creative. It's just you have to be simplistic with your measure. So I want to share with you a story about a measure that I think is really interesting. That again, Inge will like. Well, I told you yesterday when I started, Inge was a rocker in his younger days. Right? Maybe he'll grace us with a song later. I don't know, but. I grew up. I'm a child of the '80s, and I was a big Van Halen fan. Anybody old enough to like Van Halen? Yeah. Few people, yeah, okay. So anyway, in Van Halen, when they were in their heyday in the 1980s, they were a really technologically avant-garde. They were out there. Their shows, they were, you know, not only was the music great, at least I like the music, but they were technically just fantastic. They took 9 18-wheelers to carry their gear to every concert. That's a fact, 9 18-wheelers. And so the band was very concerned that the technology worked. You know, that was critical. The showmanship was vital to the success of a show, not just the music. So they had to make sure that when their 18-wheelers arrived at a venue, everything was set up properly. Otherwise, the show would be a failure. So every place they went to, they had a big contract that they would give to the venue, and they hid a secret clause in the contract. It was called Article 126. And Article 126 of the Van Halen contract said that in the backstage dressing room, if there are any brown M&Ms in the bowl, you've heard this one, then we'll forfeit the show, but you still have to pay us, basically. And the idea of slipping that in there was that it was so obscure, they would go and check the dressing room when they arrived at a new venue to see if there were brown M&Ms in the bowl, because if there were, they knew the person didn't read the whole contract, and there would inevitably be technical problems. So that was a simple measure. The number of brown M&Ms in the bowl would tell them whether or not it was going to be a successful show. You know, that's a leading indicator. So that's kind of a crazy, obscure reference, but it's a measure, right? You know, and that's how they determine whether or not their show is going to be a success. So just keep that in mind whenever you're stuck with a measurement challenge. You know, just what's the simplest thing we could measure that's kind of indicative of the success that we're looking at? So that one's for you, Inge. Yeah.
Any question from the audience? Come on.
I have a comment to Paul on the last thing you said.
Yeah.
We do the same with our developers when we write user stories. So some part down into the acceptance criteria, we write stand up and shout hi or something.
Good.
So if nobody stands up and shouts, then we know they haven't read everything.
Glad you did that, Ben. That's good.
No questions? Okay. Then I'll challenge you. Start with Zachary. 60 seconds to tell us what you mean should be the main thing to remember from these 2 days and from your message.
Oh, wow. Oh, boy. Summarize 2 days worth of content in 60 seconds. Okay. Well, I can speak for myself because I think everyone who's up here has had some wonderful talks. So I think the main component of what I was talking about is that OKRs have enabled our organization, our company, to just stay very focused on what's most important to us. So whatever model you use, the whole point is, as Paul says, to get through the fog of busyness We can all be busy, but working on the most important things. So the main thing is keep the main thing the main thing. So whatever tools you use to make sure you're individually, as a team, and as a company are focused on your strategic goals, that's the important thing. We use OKRs to do that because, you know, there's key results, we can measure it, and we can see how we're doing. So keeping the most important things in front of you, that's the key. It's very general, but it's harder to do. It's one of those things that's easily understandable but hard to do.
Close to 60 seconds, good. Paul?
Well, I think what I would like everybody to take away is what I shared yesterday. I think we have to recognize that there are different needs within the organization because there are different time spans, that an executive team operates at one level and they're responsible for longer term execution, then everyone else has to be more agile, more responsive, and has to demonstrate their unique contribution, which is why I love OKR so much. Zach and I were talking just before Gail started, and he was saying, yeah, at Google we have annual OKRs, right? Or annual objectives at the company level, and then quarterly OKRs. So they recognize this idea of the kind of the two-speed execution that I talked about. So it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Different people in your organization are going to need different types of metrics depending on where they are and what their span of responsibility is. So I would just urge you to keep that in mind.
Thank you. Gail?
I don't think I need the full 60 seconds. The word that just keeps going through my head since we sat down was focus. You know, hopefully you're going to take away an idea or two when you go home. And Corporator provides you a great tool. You know, that's why I'm here. But it's the people side. So hopefully you took back some tips and techniques, or maybe a better way to use the product, depending on which presentations you went to. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about strategy, it's about focus. And not skipping around too much, and just really focus and execute. So I have a tagline I use: focus, align, execute. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. At last, to Inge.
Yes. First, I'm very happy that you have the Google T-shirt on today, because he kind of tried to dress up yesterday. The whole show he has been running around with the Google T-shirt, and yesterday he kind of failed and he came kind of dressed up. But you're back again. I'm very happy for that.
What I would normally say is at Google, suits and ties, I was very uncomfortable dressing up. So you're lucky I'm even wearing this. Usually it's just shorts and sandals. So.
Very good, very good. What I kind of take from this conference is kind of the harmony in the presentation. From yesterday, Paul started, you know, Zach was there, Gail was there, we had diplomas, we had all these kind of PwC. It was kind of a harmony, and kind of it looked like we started to describe the elephant very well. So that's kind of one thing I took. Another thing was I love the bedtime story with Paul and Florence Chadwick. You know, you should go in and Google this lady. You know, you should Google it and really see this beautiful lady when she's swimming there with her mom on the side. You know, on the boat, and lifting the fog. See the goals, and at the end. I would like also Kari to come forward. Kari, come on. Because there is no conference without kind of a person that kind of takes it from end to end. So I would like to give her a bit dopamine now, you know, a dopamine and chocolate. So actually Kari said, you need to give this to Jan Erling. But I said to Jan Erling, I'll play her a trick. I'm actually going to give it to Kari. Hun har vært med og tatt og stått bak og vært damer som har gjort at dette har blitt mulig. Gi henne en skikkelig applaus. Jeg får klem også. Litt ekstra dopamin.
Veldig bra. Very good. Thank you. I think we take the finish line here. Thank you for participating in the debate and also in the conference in general. You have been most valuable with your messages.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to, you can come to Stockholm tomorrow. We will be there, all of us. So you're more than welcome.
Let's all go.
Yeah.
Da har det vært 2 lange dager, og jeg tar det på kontoen for Goodwill at vi starter, eller stopper en sånn halvtime før planlagt. Jeg håper jo at dere har kost dere like mye som jeg har gjort. I hvert fall har dette vært et faglig løft av uante dimensjoner, Og så er jeg litt stolt over at en del av kundene har snakket om de gode opplevelsene. Alt er ikke rosenrødt, det er det aldri, men det er også mye gode opplevelser. I tillegg så håper jeg jo at dere, ikke minst, har fått det utbyttet dere håpte dere skulle få. Både i form av nye faglige oppdateringer, i form av de topicene som ble presentert i går, men også konkret inn i løsningen vår fra Corporator, slik at dere er vel skodd og kommer hjem med mye motivasjon for å gjøre endringer, nye ting og så videre. Og skulle det stoppe opp, så er vi ikke lenger unna enn en telefon, eller i hvert fall kanskje et møterom i nær dere i tilfelle. Og så vil jeg også takke de partnerne som har vært med oss gjennom nå 2 dager, PwC, RAV og KPMG. Uten dem så hadde heller ikke dette vært mulig, og så er det jo selvfølgelig at det er enkeltpersoner, men Tor Inge har jo dratt frem den viktigste. Så med dette så ønsker jeg dere vel hjem. Tusen takk for oppmerksomheten nå i 2 dager, og på vegne av alle mine kolleger så ha en fortsatt fin dag.